Criminal defense attorney and legal strategist Eboni K. joins us now for more on the Aaron Hernandez case. Good morning, Eboni. Thanks for coming in.
Good morning, Nicole.
So I want to talk about the verdict of the case that happened over the weekend. Across the country, big news with the George Zimmerman verdict. When you look at what happened there, does that say to you that maybe this Aaron Hernandez case isn't necessarily going to be a slam dunk?
It absolutely does, Nicole. What we know is that reasonable doubt is so critically important in these cases, right? A lot of people had foregone conclusions when it came to the guilt of George Zimmerman. However, what that jury showed us is that there's a lack of evidence, right? When the jurors can't exactly come to a beyond a reasonable doubt conclusion as to the facts and exactly what happened on that night in question, they've got no other choice, factually, but to acquit.
Apart from the fact that both these cases are of national prominence, they're both in the news, is there really that much for Hernandez's attorneys to learn from the Zimmerman case? I mean, are they really analogous cases?
Factually, not so much, but there's always something to learn when you're watching other high-profile cases because there are similarities. And one of the most important things the Hernandez defense can take is watching what the prosecution did in Zimmerman and not doing a lot of that stuff, right? We saw that the prosecution in Zimmerman was just all over the place. They didn't really have a concise theory of the case that the jurors could follow in a logical way. And so what Hernandez lawyers can do is watch from that and, again, drive home, this is our version of the events, this is our version of the facts, and you have to find our client not guilty.
I mean, the reason why we're paying attention to the Aaron Hernandez case is he's a prominent football player. So, as a general rule, is it harder or easier to defend that high-profile client?
So, generally, Steve, it's easier in the sense that everyone's paying attention to these high-profile cases. There's tons of media coverage. So, therefore, all the lawyers should be on their A game. But just like any good rule, there's an exception. And the exception to high-profile cases is that, there's a lot of loopholes there, and there's a lot of, opportunities to miss some things, and everyone's paying attention. So, again, that's also added pressure to the lawyers on both sides.
Eboni, unlike the Zimmerman prosecution, what has impressed me so far about the Hernandez prosecution, the way the prosecutors have laid out the case, it seems to me they've done it with a fair degree of clarity and precision. If you're the defense, how are you spending your days working on the Hernandez case now?
Well, again, I'm looking at the credibility of some of these lead prosecutorial witnesses. So much of, so far, the prosecution's case is dependent on the testimony of Ortiz. And what we know now that we didn't know last week about Ortiz is that, he actually has a criminal record of his own.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, I know. Can you believe it, right? A football player with a criminal record. But what we also know is that some of those crimes are going to be treated harsher than others in terms of credibility. Like larceny shows the jury that you're not always capable of telling the truth, and that's going to be really tough for the prosecution to overcome.
And, along those lines, if you're part of the defense team, has there anything that changed strategically in the way they're approaching this in terms of maybe things they've learned along the way, like what they know now, what they didn't know then? Right.
Again, they're going to now be going after the credibility of some of these witnesses and also bolstering what they can get the jurors to think positively about their client, about Hernandez. Right now, there's a lot of negative impression of Hernandez. But to the extent that they can show good character traits, his, ability to be truthful, his ability to be a positive influence in his community, those are going to be things that they're going to be searching for.
I just want to clarify something. You weren't talking about Carlos Ortiz as a former football player.
No.
It's not a shock to either one of us that a cooperating witness has a suspect record.
Absolutely.
All right, Eboni K. Thanks for taking the time to join us this morning. We'll see you soon, I'm sure.